in.
I was blind, but now I can.
Yeah, calisthenics number 12. Yeah. Fly robotics. Bifocals, my only purpose is to feed the locals. I'm spreading love when I see you and gotta approach you. I see the goodness in you, I wouldn't John Wick you. I know you hustling for your family just to pay the fiscal. I see the God up in you, He bless your physical. While we navigating problems, the world is abysmal. Skip the one up, let's get it to the center. Your house is big as mine, we can always help each other. Affirmation smother, it ain't even cost me a dime to uplift my brother.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Vulnerability is the New Sexy. This is the podcast where we breaking down barriers, we have an honest conversation, and we embracing the transformative power of vulnerability. And I'm your host, Joe Corley. I'm a licensed therapist, mental wellness consultant, and I'm basically an advocate for authentic living. This is why we're here today. So this is your space to explore tough topics, normalize seeking help. We're trying to break down the stigmas as best we can and redefine what strength and self-awareness is. So joining me tonight, a couple good brothers, my good brother Justin is also a black male therapist, licensed here, and y'all recognize Big Mike, a regular on the show. Joining me tonight is my brother Paul, and we're gonna talk about the problem with calling black man sassy. Really, we just talking about what black masculinity is, what it's supposed to look like, what it's not supposed to look like, and trying to unlearn all the things that we've been taught over the years. So, and I'm excited to bring this to y'all, man. And I just want to quickly assess the room with y'all, man. Like, talk about, the societal norms, man, honestly, that define black masculinity. Like, what are some of the things that you were taught growing up define masculinity? I'm gonna start with you, Paul.
So for masculinity, the description to me, or how I perceived it, was somebody that basically had all the right answers. There was somebody that didn't show any fear, didn't really show any kind of vulnerability, refused to open up. Crying was abnormal, and you had to be that guy all the time, every time, and there was no excuses for any failure of any kind, especially within the small community I grew up in Austin. And me being Nigerian, we had an extra layer of like pressure that our immediate, well, they weren't even really aunties and uncles, but just because we grew up in the same neighborhood or area, we called them aunties and uncles. And so we all had a pretty high expectation on what type of things you were supposed to accomplish as not just a regular Nigerian boy, but as an Igbo boy of Austin, Texas, and all that stuff. It's a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the Nigerian thing, man. I was going to throw that in there. That adds an extra layer to it. We'll probably tap into it a little later, man. Big Mike, man, we've had this conversation a few times, man. Tell me what comes up for you when I ask that question.
Oh man, everything that Paul said, and mostly, man, it was don't show the emotion side. So as far as being a weakness, and always kind of have an answer or a way to figure something out if faced with a problem. Make sure that you can figure it out for whoever it is going through whatever they're going through. You're that fix it person. You're that one that can always make it better, make it right. So along with that become a lot of pressure that you put on yourself and other people put on you too. And no matter how rough, how tough it get, you still can't show that weakness. You gotta stand tall, suck it in, and make it do what it do. So no time for error or complaint.
That's right, man. Or you're gonna be called sassy.
Sassy.
Justin, man, you and I, we've been seeing. I know you see men that have this issue dealing with their masculinity. I see men that deal with this issue over and over again. More and more brothers are coming to the therapy space, but it's still not easy to get them there. Sometimes for me anyway. I don't know what your experience has been, but It's been taking some convincing, man. But first, before we get into that, talk about some of the things you grew up. Where did you grow up anyway, brother? I don't even know.
I'm from LA, so
Okay,
I
so you
grew
grew
up
up in LA.
in the Inglewood area, Inglewood,
Okay.
California, a little bit of Hawthorne, California. But when I say Hawthorne, most people don't know where that's at unless you're from LA. And so we had that mix of, for us, masculinity was that being tough piece, right? And so a lot of it comes from my dad. My dad growing up in Watts, California, and growing up in like peak gang culture. So it was always that preparation of what not to wear, what colors not to wear. You getting banged on in school every now and then, not as prevalent. And so somebody's always trying to test your manhood in a sense. And if you don't respond in a way that they're used to, or if you back away from that, then that manhood is often questioned, right? Whether you call, they didn't use the word sissy, they use other words, but whether you call sissy or whether you are called feminine was a big part of that growing up among just the boys in the neighborhood. As far as from other men, what I learned about masculinity is a lot of responsibility, especially growing up in the church. A lot of responsibility, having to be the leader, having to always have the answers, having to I think Paul and Mike, you guys really said it quite a bit. Not really being able to fail, and so not being able to fail, it puts a unnecessary amount of pressure on you. And a lot of times you might experience different areas, but that's kind of why I learned about masculinity. That and having a hard work ethic. I think work was probably the number one priority of what I learned about being a man. A man who doesn't work doesn't eat. And so a lot of identity, a lot of value attached to how hard you work.
Yeah, for sure. Kill, eat what you can kill type stuff.
Mhm.
That type of mentality, man.
Hey
You
man,
know.
I wanna throw one little extra thing, and I can't speak for everyone, but for me, uh, I'm the oldest of my siblings, and I grew up in a household where my dad wasn't there.
Okay.
So those two things right there added additional pressure to the whole manhood thing, right? Because I got to set the example because I'm the oldest, and I got to kind of take on a manly role in the household because there's no father there present. So that, and different people are exposed to that at different ages. I was like 7 8, you know what
Okay.
I mean? So from that point on, it was just one of those things that was kind of understood. It just wasn't said, but it was
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we might tap in a little bit to, I was raised also by a woman for the most part, and the added pressure of being raised by a woman,
Mhm.
and seeing the lack of masculinity or the lack of manhood in the household, and not even being asked to, but wanting to fill that role or be,
Yeah.
what you feel like your mother is missing, um, and putting that pressure on yourself to perform at a high level at all times. Um,
Mhm.
but listen, I want to play a video real quick, and we can come back and talk about it on the other side.
I think one of the most difficult things for us as men is that we often identify ourselves by what we do.
Yeah.
And when what we do is no longer the thing that what we can do, we find ourselves in a difficult place mentally because what I did was who I was. And that was a difficult challenge for me to transition out of ball because I didn't know who I was outside of putting a helmet on. It takes time to have an enlightenment that you are not what you do. And it took so much work. It took so much prayer. It took so much discovery. And then it also took unpacking because I had attached myself to what I did because what I did allowed me to be seen. And when we are not seen as men, we don't know what to do.
We don't feel valuable. We don't feel valuable.
We don't feel valuable.
We don't feel valuable if we can't do what people say we're good at. The entertainer I was is not who I am. My 3S4 media brand, it's been great for me because now I'm able to make content and not have to always be the content, right? You know what I mean?
Man,
so I'm able to be free and I'm able to feel like, wow, I don't have to be the guy that's like, well, how do I look? How do I feel? How is my outfit right? No, I could just be there and be me and just be. I've learned in life to just be sometimes.
I've been very vocal on this show about my legal situation and the things that I got caught up in. I was a teacher and a coach, and because of my legal situation, those things was taken from me, and I wasn't able to do them for a period of time. when that happened to me and I couldn't, identify with what I was doing, and I lost complete sight of myself, right? I sunk into a deep hole. And, my depression was exacerbated by, it was already kind of there a little bit, but it was exacerbated by 1,000% at that moment. I ended up having to check myself into a mental institution because I had a serious breakdown, not being able to connect with who I was. I was Coach Joe. I was Mr. Corley. When you take these things from me, what am I? Who am I? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. Justin, let me ask you, man, when you see that video, do you have experience with brothers coming in, identifying with what they do, and having a hard time separating that from who they are as men?
Most definitely. It's one of the main principles that I set my masculine identity framework on. And I even have it on my website. You're more than what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for work, I work with a lot of veterans. And so a lot of veterans, as they're transitioning to civilian life, it's really difficult to detach from who you've been trained to be. And so we see that with a lot of men too. It's like, hey, I'm trained to be this stoic guy. I'm trained to be this provider. I'm trained to have a lot of my value in how well I'm able to give unto others, right? And you rarely see being able to give unto self. And so when a man is no longer able to do that, it hits him really hard. And it becomes very difficult to walk him through that process of, hey, you have to allow yourself to adjust to life challenges because that's just not the way that life works. And so now having to re-identify who I am as an individual and actually get to know who you are as an individual. Because a lot of us growing up, there was one time I wanted to be a basketball player. I am 5'7". I'm 5'8" on a good day. And I'm not athletic at all. But I was, you kind of socialize and this is what you do. And so when you're not able to fit that mold, you're like, what's next? Do I look at entertainment? Do I look at blue collar? Like you're looking at all these different things that we have associated with black men. And so yeah, I come across it quite a bit.
Yeah. So do I, brother. So do I. And like I said, as I was just saying, it's a challenge I had to overcome myself. And I do want to give hope to the brothers out there, man. There is a way out of it. There is light at the end of that tunnel. You can overcome when you start to unlearn some of the things that you have grown up with, identifying with masculinity. You can find yourself outside of what you do. Paul, you watched the video, man. Do you relate to any of those statements?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, um, my biggest problem was growing up is trying to establish some form of identity for myself, something that I could latch on to. You know, my peers, they identified themselves with being medical students, going to be law school students, and all these things. I wasn't any of those. I was just the guy that played sports, and so I identified myself with just that, being athletic, playing basketball, running track, and getting a scholarship to a small community college. But when that didn't work out, I didn't know what to think of myself. I was straight up confused. I didn't know what to say. I mean, all throughout high school, didn't really take on any of the educational endeavors I needed to learn how to speak. I cursed I used curse words to basically, huh? I used, sorry, I used curse words to basically put sentences together because I just couldn't speak any other way. And, fell into depression because I didn't really have the confidence to come and speak with people and everything. I just saw everyone else just blossoming with their own special identities, not knowing that they had their own particular problems that they were facing inside. And the only way I really found that out is, 10 or 15 years later, now that I'm in the position I'm at and speaking to those folks that I thought were the guys or whatever at that time, just really over there struggling with themselves. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of that video definitely did speak with me, because if you have an identity that you've basically used to just kind of broadcast to the world that this is who you are, and then that particular thing that you basically show folks that you have value and just kind of disappears, you basically lose yourself.
Yeah. Mike, you kind of spoke to dealing with that, that mentality for a long time. And then I know that you've been very vocal on this show too about your mental health journey, man. I want to know from you, what was like the eye opener or, one of the changing moments for you when you started to understand that you are more than just the man or the head of everything.
It wasn't a pretty situation. So basically, what happened was, and it ultimately led to my depression, which led me to going to therapy.
Mhm.
Um, like I mentioned earlier, being the head of a household, male figure in the house, since there was no man there, felt a sense of responsibility. Fast forward a couple years ago, my mother was in the hospital, and they was having a problem, taking her blood and things like that. She had little small rolling veins, that kind of thing. So they just kept poking her. And it just got to a point where we was like, man, they just sticking her too much. You can see she's in the pain and she's not speaking up for herself. So normally whenever there's something going on with my mother, as a collective group, myself, my brother, my aunt, and my cousin, we get together and make the decisions for my mother when she's in the hospital, that kind of thing, right? But I am the legal power of attorney. Well,
Mhm.
this particular time, my aunt, cousin, and brother weren't there, just me and the doctor, and I made a decision on my own without consulting with the other family members, and to do a procedure on my mother. That procedure didn't go as well as it should have, and as a result, it left my mother with she lost usage of her left arm and her left hand, right? So now I'm faced with a situation that I cannot fix, when basically my entire life has been, my identity was that fixer for everybody and for everything, right? So the one person that I've been trying to protect all these years, in my head I actually caused more harm than anybody else could have, right? And that guilt just like ate me up, and
Yeah.
that affected my identity, because I'm like, it affected me personally. I'm like, okay, I've always been this protector, this fix it, and I can't do this. So it rocked me to my core. Just knowing that it was something that I couldn't fix for the first time in my life, it it affected me and threw me into depression, man. And like I said, it's one of them things where you feel like you can get out at any moment.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep treading water. And man, my wife thought I was drowning.
Right. What was
So
the
she,
moment in therapy where you were like, God,
man,
what was the breakthrough moment for you in therapy when you were like, okay,
it
this
was
ain't natural?
it was a moment where basically he told me that that moment don't define you,
Mm-hmm.
right? you
Mm-hmm.
you you've been a protector, you've proven yourself, even though this is a situation that you can't fix. Maybe it's not meant for you to fix this problem.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something for you to learn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there was a reason why this happened. There's a reason why I can't fix it. It's a reason why I feel the way that I feel. I just had to find out what that was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm still searching for that. But that was the moment when some of the guilt, I started working on the guilt part of it. And it kind of started getting less. And I still struggle with it a lot. When I see my mother doing certain things, that
Mm-hmm.
people with two hands take for granted. And
Yeah.
it kind of set me back. But for the most part, I'm learning how to get rid of that guilt that I've been holding on to all this time. So
Right. Right. I mean, that's the journey, man.
yep.
That's the journey. Having to understand, that, like you said, that don't define you. Um, yeah. So, but that's a difficult thing to observe on a regular basis, man. So, um, thank you for sharing that with us. Justin, man, backstage we was talking about, you said you was doing some reading, and I wanted to give you,
Hmm.
if you want to, give you an opportunity to talk about some of the like historical context and cultural context that go into shaping some of these illogical thoughts and intrusive thoughts that brothers come up with.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Um, a lot of the historical context when we're looking at black masculinity, man, a lot of it's gonna have to do with you're dealing with racism, right?
Hmm.
Looking at systemic racism, that's always going to play into it. And so I know people do connect it back to slavery. I kind of challenge that with the idea that slavery never ended; it just evolved. It evolved into black codes. It evolved from black codes into into kind of what we know to be the civil rights movement. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of those things affected how we had to operate. And so
Right.
a lot of times growing up as black men and as black boys, we're told that one, we can't express the emotions because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right, by being emotional and being reactive. I don't know if y'all ever heard this, but hey, you can't do it the white people do.
Yeah.
You can't be cutting up like that. And so already having to be hyper aware of how I'm engaging with my space. And so I can't be too angry. Oh, I can't be too happy. I can't be too sad because I'm having to worry about how people are going to respond that, are they going to read me in a negative way? And so a lot of that comes from how society reads and treats black men and black boys. Um, a lot of times, by the time you hit the age of 8 or 9, you kind of don't even feel like you get to be a child anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're parentified in a sense, and if it's not by the role you take on in the house, it's by the people around you, right? Because now you're getting bigger, now you're getting taller. Another part of history too is the environment, and so for a lot of us, masculinity becomes the identity that we hold in order to survive the environment, and a lot of those environments are rooted in poverty. And so when we're looking at these areas, not to say that all black people grow up in poverty, but because of a lot of the systems put in place, a lot of us are put in situations that are not always financially the best. And so, in order to operate in those areas, you're having to brought up tough, right? A lot of mothers talk about, I got to toughen up my son because he has to be more tougher than the world. And in doing so, we're taught to restrict our emotions, right?
Right.
In doing so, we're taught that we have to be invisible in order to move on by. And so now, when we're in our relationships, now when we're fathers, when we're husbands, when we're trying to connect with community and friends, it's difficult to do so
Yeah.
because we suppress a lot of these emotions for so long. And so a big part that I really look into is by connecting to yourself, you can connect with other people, right? By
Yeah.
me understanding what I'm experiencing emotionally, I'm able to get a good idea of what my fully lived experience is. And then I can share that with other people. And when they share that with me, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
so that historical context kind of goes really, really deep when it's just looking at how does society view black men, how does our community view black men, and then how do we view ourselves in the role within that community of having to really uphold everybody.
Right.
I know it's not talked about a lot, but that becomes a big part of it.
Right. It's very confusing, man, because you growing up, and my mother told me, you got two strikes coming in the door. You already got two strikes, right?
Hmm.
And this is very true. And she has to tell me that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? In a way, she has to tell me that. But also, what does that do to my mindset? Like I have to temper myself um, in every situation. I have to be careful about the things that I say in every situation. Also, on the other hand, if you out in the streets, you better not let so and so, whoop your ass, or I'm gonna whoop your ass when you come home.
Yep.
So on the other hand, I can't be no punk, but I gotta be a punk sometimes.
it's,
You know,
it's,
so you gotta try to figure out, what situation for what. I have to be masculine, so to speak, in a
hmm.
situation that involves me either defending myself or what I mean. Somebody wants to ride my bike, can't ride my bike.
Right.
I'll take your bike, punk. And I gotta get off my bike and I gotta fight you for my bike. You
Exactly.
know? But
Exactly.
in some circumstances, if I fight, I could be risking my life.
Right. Dr. AJ Franklin, he talks about invisibility syndrome. And so I know Paul and Mike, I know y'all talked about only being seen when you're able to fulfill these roles. A big part of what he was talking about was with that invisibility syndrome, the main goal of behavior for a lot of black men is to protect my integrity and my respect.
Hmm.
You're going to respect me. And in that respect, I'm going to get my integrity. You're going to see me as somebody that's worth it. And so you're having to learn how to maneuver those in two different spaces.
Yeah. And this is why we're having this conversation, right? Because this is a very difficult balance that we're being asked to maneuver through consistently. You know what I mean? Especially brothers who are trying to do something for themselves. You know what I mean? The ones that are operating in like as entrepreneurs or in the corporate space or whatever space you're trying to make something happen for yourself. You gotta live up to a certain standard. You know what I mean? At all times. You know what I mean? Um, I'm gonna watch this other video, man, and Paul, when on the other side of it, man, I'm gonna get your reaction to it, man. Let me play it real quick, man.
We can't expect Black men to express themselves, to feel seen, to share their emotions, and then call them sassy the second that they do. Black men do not experience depression less than Black women. Let's be clear about that. What's happening is that Black men are being ignored and misdiagnosed due to biases stacked against them. This is a form of violence, a violence that starts from birth. A violence that tells Black men that they can't express their emotions. A violence that tells Black men that their worth is tied only to what they can provide tangibly, not for who they are or how they feel. Black boys are reared to suppress their feelings. They're told to be strong, not to cry, to man up. And then when they become adults, we expect them to know how to identify and express their emotions. This contradiction is not only harmful, it's deadly, and it makes absolutely no sense. When we talk about the stress response, the trauma response, we often mention fight or flight, but we rarely talk about freeze response. The freeze response often includes numbing behaviors. These are behaviors that are attempts to escape from the reality that feels unbearable. This can be excessive substance use, which is often dismissed or stigmatized rather than understood as a symptom of deeper pain, or worse, lionized as the best way to deal with your pain. Numbing behaviors like working and overworking, pushing themselves to exhaustion to avoid sitting with their reality, or engaging in promiscuity, using it as a means to momentarily escape the weight of their emotions and also avoid being present. These unrealistic expectations and societal pressures are often what lead to these numbing behaviors. It's not that Black men experience depression less than others. It's that their depression is systemically ignored and misinterpreted. And it's time that we stop ignoring Black men's mental health. It's time that we listen and validate their experiences and dismantle these harmful narratives, because Black men deserve to be seen. They deserve to be heard. They deserve to heal, and they deserve to grow old. So what can we do?
Listen, man, I just thought about something while she was talking. I was just doing whatever I can to survive my trial, right? Like, I'm trying to stay mentally tapped in. I happen to be in the middle of my trial in a basketball league, right? So it's like my trial starts on a Monday, and it's a week long, and on Thursday I have a game. So on Thursday, before my trial is supposed to end, I go to a game, right? I'm in the middle of my trial. I spent my day in the courtroom, and I'm spending my night hooping in this league. And in the midst of this thing, I get into it with this ref, and he was really out of control. You know how them rec league refs be? They don't have no sense at all. They just there. And this dude muffed me. Like, he muffed me, pushed my head. And man, I started to go, and then I immediately froze. I had that freeze response. And because I'm like, I can't get in no trouble right now. I can't do nothing to this man. So I just sat in the middle of that basketball court and started crying. I had no idea why. My reaction was just to start crying, because here I am, I'm being punked in real time. You know what I mean? And I can't do nothing about it, because if I do, I'm afraid of what the consequences are. So I don't have no context for that. I just thought about that story as she was talking, man. She said something about that freeze response, man. But Paul, man, you heard her talking, man. Do you ever feel the pressure not to reveal what you're going through out of either a fear of being looked at as weak, or feeling like you're going to be ignored anyway? Nobody actually cares about how you feel.
Everything she said, I went through every single situation, every single stage, everything. Growing up, again, we were not told, basically, there's no such thing as depression. Shut up and get up and do exactly what you're supposed to do. Tackle your problems head on. That's the only way you're going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So with that mentality coming into my marriage, fast forwarding all the other stuff that happened when I was growing up, I was like, okay, in order for me to look like the man here, I gotta act like I know what I'm doing. So me coming out of graduating from a historically Black college, working for a Fortune 500 company, Chevron, I was seriously intimidated. I thought I didn't know. I thought everybody in the company knew exactly what they were supposed to do, so I had to pretend. I didn't know how to ask questions, and every single year, my performance was not on par because I just was afraid to talk to people and act like as if I didn't know what I was talking about or I didn't know what I was doing there. And coming home to the house, I didn't know how to really express to my wife that, hey, I actually may get fired, because of performance.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I got into a performance evaluation that I finally started taking control of my own career. But I was depressed inside, and how I dealt with that is I just continued working. I worked from sun up to sundown just to try to see if I can figure things out. And at the same time, I was at Chevron, I was studying for the CPA exam. And I took that same energy of avoiding my reality of there's something seriously going on here by focusing on the CPA exam. There were times I came home and I cried. I, for whatever reason, just went off on people for no apparent reason. And funny enough, you mentioned your moment in the rec league. I was also in a basketball league, and this league was with all of my fellow coworkers. Everybody I know were there, but was playing. For whatever reason, I just went completely off and tried to fight somebody over a stupid call. I literally put my hands on somebody, and the ref, instead of for him, the ref kicked me out or told me that I was, suspended or whatever. Instead of for me to leave the gym, I stayed in the gym and continued heckling the person I almost tried to fight or kill or whatever until the game was over. The next day, I mean, people saw that, and I was just like, I really don't understand why I did that. I could have lost I don't know why I started flipping out, but yeah, just all that pressure of trying to be the guy and not being able to express any of my feelings and dealing with that depression by just working and trying to find some other form of identity for myself. I mean, everything she talked about, that's exactly what I went through.
Yeah, 100%, man. Mike, man, sometimes that anger ain't got nowhere to go. I'm out crazy, brother.
Man, I used to be that little angry black man every day. It had gotten to a point my grandson was like, Pops, why you mad today? He this dude this dude like 5 or 6 when he said it, like you mad
Yeah.
again? And that's what really, really brought to my attention how bad it was. Um, but a lot of mine go back to growing up. My uncle always told me that ultimately a man is judged by how well he take care of his family, right? So there's that pressure of now I'm married, wife, 3 kids, no good example on how to be a husband or a father. So you just learn this thing on the fly. So my thing is my way or no way. And so I was loud, I was rude, putting the hammer down, that kind of thing. And as years go by, you know, it's affecting my relationship with my wife, with my kids, that kind of thing. So my kids are grown. Uh, we go to counseling, and my wife go to counseling. And the hardest thing for me to hear in the counseling from my wife was that all those years, early on in our marriage, I silenced my wife. She didn't have a voice because I feel like I had to be the man, because I had that fear of failing her, that I felt like I had to do all this other stuff that ultimately was affecting my marriage. It's like I didn't recognize it, I didn't care. Because in my head, this is what it's gonna take to be this man for this family. And in the back of my head, all I'm hearing is, hey, I'm gonna be judged by how well my family is.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, and so that was the hardest thing for me that I would recognize and accept. And I just accepted this a few years ago. But then lately, recently in the last 2 years or so, my wife actually got her voice, and when she got it, she got it. And 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 I'm being more intentional on letting her have her voice and not silencing her anymore. So that pressure of just not feeling as a father and a husband put like man, I can't even describe the amount of pressure that they put on you.
Yeah, man. Man, Justin, I was gonna ask you a question, man, but you chomping at the bit over there, man. Like you got something to say, man.
No, no, I'm just listening, man.
Nah, go ahead, brother. You got some reactions to some of this stuff, or
that is my face. My face is I'm reacting,
yeah,
but but no, I love hearing y'all tell y'all stories because it's
Mm,
connected. I remember last year I dealt with like heavy pessimism. I didn't realize how bad it was. My wife was like, "Why everything you talk about, you complain about money or it's something that's negative?" And if I'm being honest, it was that pressure, man. It was very stressful, especially being in the counseling field. And you gotta,
mm,
Joe, you know this. You gotta pay your way. Basically, you got to go through a whole 3,000 hour period to get in your hours, and you're not gonna get paid like a full clinician. And if you want to get your PhD at any point, you dang near got to quit your job. So every option I was
mm,
looking at was putting me in this space to where I couldn't do what I felt I was raised to do. Right,
yeah,
that was to take care of your family, take care of your wife, be a provider, and it put me in a really hopeless space. I really was like, I didn't want to hear about no planning trips. I don't want like no, like
yeah,
because all you think about is what you cannot do,
right.
and that becomes all that you see. It's like, man, I can't do this, or I'm not doing that, or I'm looking at my bank statement, and it's like, oh my god, what is going on? And so to hear you guys talk about that space of it's the pressure that really gets you. And so I tell clients all the time, you grew up hearing pressure makes diamonds. Cool.
yeah,
It does. You're not a diamond.
yeah,
you're, you're a person. So I
yeah,
tell them all the time, I say,
Mhm.
man, I say pressure makes diamonds, but it crushes people.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we don't understand how that pressure is affecting us until one, we breaking down on the basketball court because we're in this space of where we feel frustrated and helpless in the moment, or
yeah,
we trying to fight people because I don't got nowhere else to redirect that anger, or I'm trying to overcompensate for some of these feelings of who I think I'm supposed to be by feeling powerful in some way. And so we kind of all see these spaces. And so it's really interesting to hear those dynamics because we don't hear about
Mm,
stuff. And that was one thing I didn't like growing up. I did not have enough men be honest with me about they
sure,
just did it, right? So I grew up watching my dad do everything. He paid every bill. He done worked 12-hour, 11-hour days, done took care of himself and a family of seven altogether.
Mm.
But never really truly sat me down all the time and said, hey, this is not easy. And so you don't hear a lot of those stories till men get a little older. They got grandkids now. And now they say, oh, yeah, by the way, yeah, that ain't easy.
yeah, man. And to add on to that, talking about relationships and having men be honest with you. I grew up in an environment where being a hypersexual, promiscuous man was considered cool, right? And not
mm,
understanding that is the lamest shit ever. I didn't understand that. I mean, not there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of women if that's what you want to be, but if it's not what you want to be and you pretending to be something you're not, just to prove your masculinity, that's corny. You know what I mean? Like I didn't understand that, and I grow up now as a therapist. I'm talking to men who are dealing with some of those pressures and stresses that y'all are talking about, and they don't have the communication skills to say that to their wives. So instead of being angry or just being sad, they go out into the world and try to prove their masculinity by jumping up and down on some other women.
Mm,
Now, I by no means am making an excuse for brothers who do that. You are responsible for your own actions, and you are responsible for learning the communication skills that are required for you to communicate to your wife. But I'm just saying, it happens. It happens, and some of these historical contexts that we've given you, some of the pressures that we've given you are in the inability. Just you don't even know that you can just approach your wife and be like, "I'm hurting.
mm,
Okay, I don't have it today. I'm not strong enough to deal with this. I need you to lift me up, or I need you to help me lift myself up." Not knowing that you can say that to your woman if you have a good woman. Because everybody don't have a good woman. You
that
know,
part.
and some and some women are going to tell you to suck it up,
mm-hmm,
or I don't have it in me to listen to that, or you know what I mean, or basically call you sassy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, this is what we talking about. This is why I'm, a lot of people are asking me in the chat, what does this mean? This is what I'm talking about. Instead of acknowledging that you're, like Justin said, that you're not a diamond, you're a person, and pressure crushes people, and having the inability to communicate what those things are can cause you to do some things that you might not want to do or you might not need to do. You know what I mean? Again, not making no excuses for no man, but I'm saying this is what happens. This is
Yeah.
what happens. You need to have this understanding. This is what we talk about. This is what we unpack in these therapy, even these couple sessions too. This is what we unpack. We trying to
Man,
understand.
a lot of times it's not even that you don't feel like you can say it to your wife or your significant other. A lot of times you don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
For me, that's the biggest problem. I don't know how to express myself the right way so that my wife can understand what it is that I'm going through at that moment. That's always been my issue, and I'm trying to learn how to do that. But that's always been my roadblock, with my wife and my relationships in general. So, yeah,
Yeah.
not knowing how to say it.
Yeah. I know common things I hear with that too, Mike. A lot of men are scared to say it. I have quite a
Yeah.
few clients who be like, well, when I do tell my wife these things, she either saying stop being so negative, or I start to realize she gets anxious. I think the anxious piece is a pretty big one, where my wife is getting anxious now, and now I'm having to factor in how my words are making her feel, and now I'm having to kind of flip my focus. Right. So if I tell my wife how bad my day was at work, now she's getting anxious thinking I'm about to quit my job tomorrow. I'm just trying to tell you I didn't have a good day at work. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And men and women got to stop me tooing each other, man. Hey, it's gonna be some days where I'm not doing well. I can't hear me too. I can't hear that. Okay, I need you to listen and be present with what I'm dealing with. And when it's your turn, I promise to give you that same respect. And I tell you, I know it's hard out there for you, especially if you're a black woman. I know it's hard out there for you. It's hard out there for me too. And we have different circumstances. And I don't understand what you going through all the time, and you don't understand what I go through all the time. But I understand that it's different, and
Mhm.
we have different perspectives and the way it affects us, and we should be able to talk about that without beating each other down. You know what I mean? So that's the hope, man.
Facts.
That's the hope, man. Uh, you know, let me play one more video, man, and then I'll get y'all reaction on the other side. We got, what in the role reversal is going on here? Look at this guy. Is this some kind of, what's this mean, brother? I want to understand what this means, man. What are you trying to say to us right here, bro? Or ma'am, I don't know what you are. So we gonna let me see. Yeah, man. That's why this is why we
That's
Big Mac.
facts.
That's why we here, bro. And I really appreciate the fact that lots of men, come to me and tell me, hey, I needed this tonight. I needed this space tonight.
Mhm.
We here to have these conversations, man. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times there are unique issues to black men and only black men understand, and we're gonna talk about those. We're gonna talk about those so you can feel seen, you can feel validated. We're gonna create a space for that, and it's not to bash anybody else or put anybody else down. Just to say, hey, brother, I see you. I understand what that is because I'm going through it too. You know. But let me get to this video, man. This last video.
Intuition is not a woman's trait. It's a human trait.
Yeah.
It's a thing that we develop. And we don't often think of black men as having intuition.
Yeah.
But it's like if you walk into any neighborhood and you're like, yo, something feels,
bro.
That's intuition. That's like your body and spirit telling you like, nah, something don't feel right here. For a lot of us, performative masculinity means I have to size you up, and B, I have to be prepared to defend my masculinity. And that might either be physically or verbally, right? So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to lean into the things that I think are desirable, right? I might talk about how much money I got. I might talk about my career. So I don't like when people ask me what I do. It's like my least favorite question in the world. Because it's like, it doesn't allow room for the person to just be a human without all the other cachet and attachments that we link in the labels, bro. Like I'm an influencer or blah, blah, like I don't care about none of that. So much of that is wanting to appear like we have it all together. It took a while for me to kind of remove myself from that. And recognize like I want to be able to be a safe space for brothers. I want brothers to feel like they're vulnerable. Like you don't gotta be hard all the time.
Yeah.
And also too, you get to be who you just get to be present.
Right.
So if you're feeling sad today, you get to express that. You also get to unpack the layers of sadness and anxiety and nervousness and being like, yo, I'm scared about this situation. I'm unsure about the situation.
Right.
Performative masculinity doesn't allow us to be free, and it doesn't also allow us to speak our truth.
Right.
You know, when we're like in our truth, then we just get to communicate.
Yeah, man, this is kind of what we've been talking about, right? This is what we're talking about, right? Performative masculinity, man. You know, I don't know how many times I'm in a room and I'm sitting there talking. I might be dressed like this, and you know, I get paranoid and thinking they treat me some kind of way, like I didn't, like I ain't got all these degrees and I ain't this professional man that I am, man. So you know, I'll be like, hey, you know what I mean? And that's ridiculous. I shouldn't even have to. I shouldn't feel like I have to do that in order to like measure up. You know what I mean? Well, Paul, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, most definitely, especially in the financial arena that I'm in. So I started my own firm, accounting firm, because I got tired of doing the 9 to 5 with the Fortune 500 companies that just refused to give me a promotion that I felt like I deserved. And, you know, I was over here making them all this money. I figured, okay, let me go ahead and do it on my own. The pandemic, when the PPPs and the EIDLs and the grants all came out, I actually got to see firsthand exactly how biased the society that we are in when it comes to distribution of wealth or money in general. I mean, if you were African American, I mean, you were the last to know about sensitive information that could really be life changing. What people didn't know, that if you received a PPP loan, you could actually ask them to increase that amount. I didn't know that. So there were folks that normally got the 20,000, but then got an additional $40,000 on top of that. I thought it was mind-boggling. And then for me, being able to, I guess, reach out and go beyond speaking to African American folks, it was difficult. Like my I guess Caucasian friends just didn't feel comfortable talking with me, and so whenever I would step into a room full of those guys, the masculinity I had to basically protect was, I belong in this room. I dressed up wearing suits, ties, and everything, and these guys were coming to these functions wearing jeans and stuff, because if I didn't do that, they would think that, oh, he's just here to just come and collect my plate and throw it away, or come and open the door for us or something, in the whole hospitality arena. And so with all of that just there, again, for me, I had to really put that poker face on that, I know more than anybody in the room, and really I didn't. And I was actually there to ask a lot of questions, but again, I felt insecure with asking even the slightest of questions, because people there, I felt like they were judging me. And because of my title and where I was at, I got thrust into another situation, being a CFO of a pretty big nonprofit organization, being forced to speak in front of people about money. And I didn't really know enough about the whole space enough to just basically be that person there. So I, again, tried to protect my masculinity by just overcompensating for it and studying and doing all these crazy things I didn't really need to, because, again, I just couldn't be myself. I couldn't necessarily be vulnerable about stuff. And, outside of doing all of that, I realized that I started creating this persona that I had everything together. And so because of me putting that perception on, people didn't feel comfortable talking to me or really asking me those questions that we both could basically benefit from and learn and grow together. And so I started kind of scaling back. I stopped wearing suits as much as I could, just kind of relax and tone down a bit, so that I could just kind of like, reach out and appeal to people. And so it's a learning process for me. I learned, just basically just figuring out a way to just be vulnerable and just not really care about what people think.
Yeah.
It's really beneficial for, I guess, your audience and yourself as well. It's still going to take some time, but it's definitely getting there. It's definitely getting there for me.
Well, hey, man, running and owning your own business helps. That's for sure. You know, I can tell you that. I mean, I noticed some brothers aren't in that position and haven't done it yet, or don't even want to do it. But I was working at a clinic and they was on my head about me wearing a hat, and I'm in here with a group of teens who are talking about killing themselves and hurting themselves on a daily basis, and I'm like saving their lives, like literally saving their lives. I'm not exaggerating when I say that, you know.
Mhm.
So they talked to me about the hat, and I said, this is one of this, like, as I was walking out the door, I was like, are y'all serious? Y'all not serious about what we're doing here. We literally in there saving lives. You think they don't give it. I need to look like this.
Yeah.
I have to. You know what I mean? I have a lot of suits and I like wearing them. I like dressing up. I like looking sharp, but I have to look like this. Sometimes I got to do both. I got to, and you worried about my hat. I'm literally here saving lives. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Y'all not serious, but obviously no one understood what I was talking about. But
Exactly.
man, Mike, man, let me ask you, man. When you talk about your journey, man, and what is the healthier version of you, the more humanized, man. You're still a man, you know what I mean? But what is this healthier version you look like? What are some of the things that you used to do that you don't do no more, but you still show up as a man?
Well, I tell you what I very intentional on doing now that I used to never do is tell people I love them.
Mm.
Mother, kids, friends, everybody. Um, it's just something I'm more intentional about doing now, man. Usually if somebody heard me say that, it was like, you sick? Something wrong? Something you're not telling me? That that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
uh that and just being welcoming and not intimidating.
yeah,
For people, for especially family members and friends, people I love, for them, I want them to be able to approach me. you know I've always heard I'm intimidating person, that kind of thing. I always look like I'm mad about something. So just being intentional on being approachable. My attitude's still bad. I'll be working on that. I still still had that little temper, that little James Evans that'll come out every now and then, but try to suppress that as much as possible. But the hardest problem that I'm having with that is people still judge me based on how I used to be and not how the person I'm trying to become. I
Mhm.
struggle with that. Now, my wife see me every day. My wife's family see me all the time. They live here in Dallas. My family lives, 2.5 hours away from here. So they don't see me on a daily basis. They are
mhm,
having a hard time dealing with and accepting this new version of me.
yeah,
They feel like I'm abandoning them, like I'm not doing as much for them as I should because I'm learning how to say no. And that therapist, he just you turn against your family. That damn therapist.
mhm.
Everything is a therapist's fault. You
I
know
don't
what I
hear
mean? I'm
that
like,
therapy shit. I don't want to hear that therapy shit.
yeah. I'm like,
Uh,
I'm
uh,
like, no, this is Mike finally setting boundaries. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And a lot of people don't know how to accept that.
yeah,
But yeah, man. And so it's not things that I used to do, it's just things that I'm trying to be more intentional on doing now on purpose to show people that I love them, tell them I love them, and just being a different person, trying to break old habits. It's hard, but trying my best to do it.
yeah, man. I get that same stuff, man. I don't want to hear none of that therapy shit, man. Get up out of here with that. And it's like, ever since you started going to therapy, ever since you became a therapist, you start trying to communicate and
Yeah,
talk different and all of
yeah,
us. Like, man, but this is what we should have been doing. Like, that's what I'm trying to. And I was doing it wrong before. You know what I mean? Don't get comfortable with
yeah,
me doing the wrong thing, brother. I'm trying to be what you need right now.
yeah.
Justin, let me ask you, man. It's some probably some ladies out here like, man, we are identifying some of these issues and some of these symptoms in our men. and we don't know how to foster, intimacy or open them up to communication
Mm.
so they can be whatever they need to be, man.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you say
Man,
to them?
to them, wives, mothers, sisters,
Yes.
daughters, aunties, best
Hey,
friends, man, I say give them that space. Like
Mm.
it's like the golden rule: do unto others what you want done unto you, right?
mhm.
The same way that I would hope, your partner, your father, your uncle, your spouse, whoever is giving you kind of like what Mike said is allowing you to have a voice. It's the same way that you allow your husband to have a voice. I would really say challenging themselves to check how they may have internalized patriarchy. And what I mean by that is, well, my father didn't do that, or my grandfather wasn't like this, or the men that I'm used to wasn't like that. I think that's where a lot of the sassiness comes from, because as men get to know who they are more and connect to their emotionality more, now you're having to realize you have to make space
Man.
for a completely different person. Kind of like what Mike was saying. My family's not used to the version that sets boundaries. A lot of our wives, a lot of our mothers, a lot of our maybe women who are close peers, they may not be used to giving us that emotional space. And so when you hear a man talk that way, it can come up as, oh, he's just complaining, right? When in reality, he just wasn't talking a lot. And so now it's being the safe space, recognize when I'm overtaking that space,
Yeah.
right? Am I allowing my anxiety to run this conversation? Am I allowing my fears to run this conversation? And when I feel that rise up in my body, to kind of check it, to say, hey, he needs this right now.
Yeah.
If
100%.
that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, man. I try to explain it to when I first started like talking this way, my wife hated it, bro. Like hated it. I'm like, listen, you're not listening to my feelings. You're not validating anything I'm saying. You're just trying to be right.
Mm,
She was like, I'm not validating. She's like, I can never say anything right. You know what I mean? That's what she was on. Like, I can never say nothing right. And I'm like, it's not that you're not saying it right. I need you to listen to me and understand and validate that you hear me. I'm not asking you to defend yourself or
yeah.
explain why you showed up a certain way. I just need you to know that this is the way that I feel. And, I'm just trying to express that to you. That's it. I don't always need you to fix the situation where, she just used to trying to fix the situation and do
Yeah.
something differently. Like, oh, it must be on me that you feel the way that you feel. I am your wife. I need to fix this thing. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to say. I don't want you to defend yourself at all. I did that because of this and that. No, I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need that. Just understand that, this right here, this makes me feel really sad. This right here, this makes me feel unheard.
Yeah.
You know, and she's getting way better at it now. But in the beginning, hated it, hated it. I just want to.
Can
Can we just argue like normal people?
Hey man, can I touch on something real quick? It's kind of
Yeah, for sure.
off topic. Um, it's just a very defining moment for me. Was like I said, grew up in the house when my dad wasn't there, and I always promised myself I'm not gonna be like my dad when I grow up. He wasn't no man. He didn't take care of his kids. This kind of thing. So I developed like this anger, toward him. So I followed the example of my uncle. He just everything he taught me wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? But he was the best example that I had. That kind of thing. So fast forward, a very defining moment for me uh was when I found out the history of my dad. How his dad didn't tell him he loved him, show him any emotion. He just when my grandmother passed away, he just kept him just for the and his sisters just for the sake they don't go in the system. He didn't really love him. He just took care of them, that kind of thing. So he
Mhm.
had a father there, but he ain't showing no affection at all. And
Yeah,
so fast forward to my uncle, his dad wasn't in the house with him either. So he followed the pattern of my grandfather, who was a real stern, heavy-handed guy.
yeah,
So the defining moment was I'm following these people as examples, and I'm getting angry because I'm finding out the things they taught me wasn't right. But the thing is, I couldn't they couldn't teach me anything because they didn't know it themselves. I'm asking something from somebody who never had it and they don't have it to give to me.
Mm,
that was my defining moment in my masculinity, manhood in general. My dad wasn't taught love and affection, so he didn't know how to give to me and take care of his kids because his dad didn't want to take care of him. My uncle didn't receive that type of affection, love, from a mother and that kind of stuff. So he didn't know how to pass it on to me, my brother, and my cousins. So I ain't had nobody to teach me, and my examples couldn't give it to me because they didn't have it themselves.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so when I realized that the anger I have, toward my dad and all that, I just let it go because you can't hold something to somebody that they don't know to give. They don't know how to give.
right.
So that was a very, very defining moment for me in my masculinity and in general because they wasn't emotional. So my thing is I am going to be emotional now. So that was my turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a big.
And
That's.
then
Go ahead.
but now I was gonna say masculinity is showing emotions.
Yeah,
And
it
and
is.
it's okay to do that.
It's the
So
most masculine thing you can
unlearn
do,
that.
man.
Yeah.
Fellas, it's the most masculine thing you can do. And piggyback on what Mike said, man, I get clients in the room all the time that have those same experiences and they start talking about their father.
Yeah.
And I say to them, I listen to them first. And when empty, I say, hey, you know what, man? Can you give me $1 million?
Mm.
And they were like, no, man, I'm not gonna give you. I was like, why can't you give me $1 million? Well, for one, I don't have it. And I say, neither did your father. He couldn't give you what he didn't have. He
Yep.
couldn't give you, you looking for this certain way to be loved and certain way to be held and for him to show up a certain way. Well, he didn't have that. And most likely his father didn't have it to give it to him. And that's, it's talking going back to some of them historical things that Justin was talking about earlier. I mean, it's just generation by generation. We just really getting to this.
Yeah.
We just getting to this, man. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said in the beginning, it's still some of us that are struggling with masculinity. Sometimes I know better, and sometimes I still struggle with it in space in different spaces. We all know. I know better.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I just don't want to be, looked up at it as weak sometimes, man. But listen, man, I'm gonna give y'all an opportunity to close us out with what your main takeaways was or what you want brothers to take away from this conversation. Whatever you feel like closing this out with, and if you got any business that you want to promote, go ahead and do that. We got a couple of hundred people here watching us tonight, and but Paul, go ahead and go first, man. What's your main takeaway? What you want to close out with?
I mean, my main takeaway that I can definitely take from this here is that the moment that you can start being honest with yourself and being okay with being vulnerable, that is the only time that you can basically grow as an individual, as a person, in spirit, and all of that. Um, uh, Working as a tax professional and talking with people, um, I learned to listen and relate to the individuals I'm talking to because I made the exact same mistakes. I didn't know any better, just like they did. And still to this day, I'm still learning. And I want people to know that I'm still learning. And so whenever I come off as, as somebody that is at your level, that's when they're open. They'll be more open to me, and we can basically bond in that regard, and not just in that arena, in all other phases as well. Just like what you said, Mike, about learning how to tell people that you love them or that you care about them. I didn't do that either, but when I started actually implementing that type of behavior in everything that I do, that's when people started opening up to me, and and now I'm basically growing as a person because I'm actually able to see that, yeah, this person is going through the exact same thing that I'm going through, that I've been through. I'm not fighting this alone. It's not just me. And I just think that's a very powerful thing for everyone to take from this whole podcast that we're doing today. I mean, it opens up so many doors when you finally tap into your vulnerable self.
Yeah, man. I don't want anybody to think you down at H&R Block, man, down at the grocery
Oh,
store doing you.
no. Anyone
You're
that
real
goes to
CPA.
H&R
You're a
Block,
real
man, you
CPA, man.
just you're over there messing yourself up. No, I'm a certified public accountant, CPA. I stepped out on my own because I knew for sure I wanted to help people. I love educating folks. That's my main passion. So when I do someone's return, we're going over the whole thing, and I'm telling you exactly why we got to where we were and what we can do to improve. And then the biggest thing really is how to be able to substantiate your position, because the IRS loves asking stupid questions. And 9 times out of 10, the person asking that question, they don't even read the same information they have on their own website anyway. So yeah, I mean, that's what I love doing. I've been doing it I've been practicing on my own for 4 years, but I've been dealing with taxes for like over a decade or whatever. So
Where can the people
yeah.
find you, brother? Because I vouch for you. He does my taxes. Paul does my taxes, man. He does my tax returns, man. So for me and my family. So where can the people find you, brother?
I mean, you can definitely find me on my website, www.pcanaccounting.com, or you can find me on my Instagram, pcancpa19. That's when I passed my CPA exam, and that's honestly another journey in itself. That's definitely a great way to reach me, or you can email me at info@pcanaccounting.com.
All right, thank you, brother. Mike, man, what you got for us tonight, man?
Man, I'm in this men's group. We get together every other Saturday. That's how I met Joe. Actually, it's like a group of 15 to 20 of us black guys that get together on the call every other Saturday morning, and we discuss topics like this. It's our safe space, right? So in one of those calls, the topic for the day was, what do you want your legacy to be? Everyone was talking about how they want to have money for their family, different things like that. So when it got around to me, I said, I want my legacy to be that I'm the turning point in my family for me and showing love to those around me. Everybody's like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's what I want my legacy to be. You know what I'm saying? To be that change, because those that were the example for me, they didn't do it right. And I took on all their bad examples and stuff, and I applied to my life, and I messed up a whole lot of stuff. So I want to start something different. So I want to be that person that made that change and for the men in my family, so that now we'll start going in a different direction, showing love, that kind of thing. So I said all that to say that it's never too late to make a change. If anybody can change, if I can change, anybody can. Cause trust me, I was dead against it. I fought as hard as I could, But when I gave into it, I fell for it real hard, and I love the person that I'm trying to become. And so it's never too late, man. And don't let anybody define what your idea of masculinity is. Find out for yourself. Each person is different. Find out what their definition is for yourself, and be true to yourself.
Man, good bro, man. Man, I had to take a deep breath on that one, brother. I went, oh man, hold on, man. Lee. Hey, Justin, what's up, man? What do you want to take? What do you want us to take away with, man, and share how people can find you if they looking for your services, brother?
Yeah. A lot of what Mike said, really, it's I would say learning how to meet yourself where you are. And I think that's where we start to redefine what masculinity is for us, is being able to acknowledge that I don't have to be how my father was before me, or how my father's father was, or what people expect of me, especially if I'm starting to notice that it's harming me more than
Mm.
helping me. It doesn't mean I'm weak. It doesn't mean that, I can't live up to what is demanded of being a man. But what it does mean is I might have to reassess on what being a man means to me, because if I'm over here trying to be somebody that I'm not, it can cause me a lot of problems. And so, meeting yourself where you are, once you do that, getting a good idea of who do I want to be moving forward. How do I define masculinity for myself? Um, as far as my services, again, I'm a therapist. I love what I do. I specifically work with black men. That's my goal. Working with black men connect to their emotions so that they can connect to the emotions of others and allow themselves to live a full life. I really want black men to have community. I want black men to have friends. I grew up around black men not having friends. Ain't nobody but their family and they
Mm.
work, and that's it. And if you ask them, they'll tell you, I don't need nobody else. I got my family. What I who else is important? And so
Yeah.
being able to help men connect to that community, help them connect to a sense of self that goes beyond the work that they do and who they think they need to be. As far as reaching out to me, I'm on Psychology Today. You can type in Justin Owens. I'm located in Dallas, Texas. I do a lot of virtual sessions. I help men work on managing anxiety, managing stress, dealing with identity, depression, trauma. I do all of that work. My website is owenscounselingandconsulting.com. So www.owenscounselingandconsulting.com. And so that's my direct website if you just want to see more of the things I'm all about. Again, I'm open. I'm accepting clients at the moment, and so that's going to be open for most of the year until it isn't. And hopefully, I'm able to see some of you guys who are on here today.
That's right, bro. Hey, and we're gonna see you again, right?
Oh, well, please, yes, sir.
All right, man, my brother, my brother. Yeah, man. I'm just gonna close it out by saying, so first to the ladies, you don't deserve. I know it's hard out there for you. You don't deserve the abuse and to be cheated on and all the things that come with dealing with a black man who is not understood or dealt with his emotions. Um, sometimes I just, if you're not going to leave, I want to understand. I want you to understand how to handle those situations. Like I said, you don't deserve it. But if you're going to stay, then you've made a choice to deal with it. So I'm going to tell you that being combative in those moments is not going to help you. It's okay for you to set the boundary like, hey, I don't deserve this. This is making me feel a certain way. But at the same time, I do want to be here for you. I don't want this, you know, and then set the consequence to some of these actions. If you don't go to therapy, if you don't get help, if you don't deal with these emotions, I might be able to leave. But if you just sit there and stay and take it over and over and over again, then you are partly enabling the behavior. And to my fellas, man, go seek help, man. All your anger, your emotions is not listen to your emotions, okay? Anger is a secondary emotion. It's not meant to be what you think it is. Whatever you are yelling and screaming about is not really what you're mad about. You're really just scared and afraid, and you don't know how to deal with it. And I'm telling you that right now. Every single time you get mad, you were probably scared or afraid or both, and you're not understanding what you need to do with those emotions. And I'm telling you, those anger is not serving you, other than to indicate to you that you need to go get some help. That's the only real service that it has for you. And if you find yourself in them situations, listen to these brothers here, man. Go seek out Justin, go seek out myself. My website is right there, realuconsulting.com. We're trying to take and lead as many brothers as we can to the healing space, and help them be able to function normally in society, without the anger. But it's tough out here, brother. I'm
Yeah.
here to tell you it's tough out here. We're not gonna discount your situation and tell you just can't be mad. No, man, it's hard out here. It's hard out here for us. All right. And there are certain circumstances that make it harder. But we can deal. We can deal. We can figure out together. We can have communities just like this one, just like the one Mike talked about that we in on every other Saturday. We can have communities like that where we can gather and deal with our emotions together, man. Be honest, because we all dealing with the same stuff. We just don't want to talk about it. You know, that same brother is dealing with anger. He's dealing with infidelity issues with his wife. He's dealing with erectile dysfunction. All the things. All the brothers is having, is porn addiction. And Mike didn't want to join me on that porn addiction conversation. We ain't that
No,
vulnerable.
sir.
Ain't that vulnerable, but
I'm not there yet. He's still working on me,
but
brother.
it's plenty of brothers dealing with this type of stuff, man. So if you can get into a space where somebody's gonna be real, like, yeah, I'm dealing with that too, brother. It normalizes it for you. You can start healing from it. So, oh, Big Mac, no erectile dysfunction. You ain't want to join me on that conversation, huh? Okay, I ain't gonna call you for that one, Big Mac. All right. Good night, y'all. Listen, I love y'all. Come back next Tuesday. I don't know what the topic's gonna be, but it's probably gonna be good. All right. I hope you enjoyed yourself. All right. Good night,
Thank
y'all.
you. All right.
Bye, y'all.